Basically, I wanted to give you a bit of update while you're still thinking of some questions to ask. But basically, something happened today that was super interesting, and I was very surprised about it. So some of you may know that a few weeks ago, I walked 100 kilometers. Oh, hi, Jeff and Will. Hello, Nadine. It's very exciting. I feel like I've got the right audience now. I was on the wrong page. Okay, so a few weeks ago, I walked 100 kilometers in a weekend. Completely nutty, right? A double ultra marathon. I was in a lot of pain. I cried the last 30k pretty much. I cried. It was all a bit of a nightmare, and I said I would never ever do it again. So what do you think I've gone and done? Today I have booked myself on another double ultra marathon. Yes, another 100k in a weekend next July. Now I wanted to, and I'm like still a bit stunned. My husband's like, seriously? I thought you said you were never going to do this again. So, and I was thinking that this is very much like writing a book. Okay, so it's painful. Nadine saying, OMG. Yeah, so basically it is painful, but the pain has now faded, and what I'm left with is a couple of things. One is I really like doing the training, so I really like the longer walks, and I need a goal. Like finishing a book is a goal. And then the other thing is really that, you get this feeling of satisfaction that you've achieved something. And again, like finishing a book. So the walking, the training is a bit like writing just writing for yourself, writing the journals, and then doing the 100k is like doing the actual book. So it's I know it's really crazy, but I feel really happy that I've just booked this. So I have actually booked and paid, and I will be doing another double ultra marathon next July. So those of you who might want to join me on these crazy adventures, find one yourself. Okay, so questions, please. Please ask your questions in the text below the video, and thank you all for coming. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll back down. Tessa says, do you write in your head while you exercise? It's a good question, and I don't write in my head, as in I don't I thought I would dictate when I was walking, but I don't at all. And although I don't write as such, what I do is kind of process things. So like all of us, I read a lot, I watch TV, I watch films, I talk to people, I look at stuff, and when I'm walking, I think it kind of goes into my head. And I'm like Stephen King, who gets, processes a lot of his books and his plots while walking. I think I must do that. And I often feel very creative after I've been for a really big walk. I think it calms like the physical side and allows your brain to expand into other areas. So yeah, I definitely find walking is helpful for the writing process, but I don't actually write while I'm walking. Ashling says, marathons, you're mad. Matt Simmons says, if you had 2 minutes to go back in time to the point where you left your day job for writing full time, what one piece of advice would you give to yourself? If I only had 2 minutes? Do you know, what I think I would say, and this is what I've been talking about quite a lot recently around Olympic time, is measuring your life in these 4-year periods. So instead of going, okay, well, what can I achieve in 1 year? It's thinking, what can I achieve in 4 years? When I left my job in 2011, so it's been 5 years now, almost exactly 5 years, I thought that I could achieve where I am now within 18 months. And I was probably kind of dissatisfied at the beginning because I thought I wasn't getting there fast enough. I'm pretty sure many of you can relate to not getting there fast enough. And I really just thought, oh, why aren't things happening for me? Why are other people selling more? Why can't I make a better income? But then, looking back now, 5 years, I can't believe I'm in the place I am now. So it's like, like the saying, like we can't imagine what we can achieve in 5 years or 10 years, and I can't remember what the quote is. We overestimate what we can achieve in a year, we underestimate what we can achieve in 5 years. I don't know if that's Tony Robbins or whoever it is, but I think that's true. It's true for all of us. So I would say to myself then, look, think 5 years time, how much can you achieve by then? Sharon says, when did you first discover your passion for writing? Well, I think it was a passion for reading, to be honest. I have always been a massive reader. Like when I was a little kid, my mum said that I would come into their bed in the middle of the night and I wouldn't have a teddy bear, I would have a book with me. So I've always been a reader. And then I think, the writing, the first journals I have on my wall over here are from when I was 15. So I started journaling when I was an angst-ridden 15-year-old and have been journaling since then. So I don't think I had a passion for writing. It's just it's a way that I process the world. Like if I have a problem, I have to journal about it. So I think it's just a way that I process things. Yes, and as we're going, please do put your questions in the box below the video and I will hopefully get to them all. April says, do you plan your writing or research activities? And if you do you put it in a diary and stick to it? Yes, I am an absolute hardcore planning nutcase. So much so that my diary is pretty much planned out until around July next year at the moment, but I really like that. It's how I make sure I get things done, and I make sure we also schedule breaks and holidays. And if I didn't do that, I would just work all the time because I love my work. I'm a workaholic. I see if I'm holding the camera up because it's all really shaky, but here's my Filofax. I still use an old school Filofax for my diary, and then I have this so that's my planner, and then I have a logbook for every year, and I got this off Austin Kleon, who did Steal Like an Artist and in Show Your Work. Basically the logbook, I write what I did. So in my Filofax it might say, write for 3 hours, and in my logbook it'll say 2,500 words done, and if I don't do it, it doesn't go in the logbook. So that really helps me look back. Like when I look back over the year, I can be like, okay, so that's what I was doing, and also it keeps me accountable every day with what I've actually achieved. So I'm writing first draft at the moment, so I've got really quite hardcore deadlines around word count every day. So that really helps me because I log the words every day in that book. Although in my diary it says go to down the road. So I should mention this. I think this is an interesting thing. So the desk I'm at now in my home office, I do this type of stuff. I do the podcast, I do emails, I do all of that. When I write fiction, I go to a coffee shop, or basically I've started hiring a room at a local co-working space to try and do some dictation there. And that's been really helping because it gets me away from the working kind of area that is my desk, and I can essentially create away from email and social media and all that. So I hope that helps. Okay. Oh, Tessa says, how big is a really big walk? Well, I think that would be the 100k. Up until the day I did the 100k, I'd done around 42k in a day. So yeah, that was pretty big. Oh, brilliant. Suki says, how do you get ideas for your stories? This is really funny, Suki, because the reason I was late on this video is because I was doing a video on my own personal page because I got the buttons wrong. And that's the question I answered. So I'm going to answer it again. So how do I get ideas for my stories? So essentially, I think the most important thing is taking note of what makes you curious. So when you walk past, well, when you just walk in the world, or you're looking online and you see a show or an exhibition, or you walk past a bookstore and you see a cover, which are the things that make you interested? What are the things that make you stop and look? So for example, End of Days that I'm writing at the moment, I'm heading down this massive, well, it's actually a snake hole, so it's going to have loads and loads of snakes in, and I'm totally obsessed with serpents and snakes right now, and I have been for years, but I haven't really explored that in a book. And I can't really get up right now because I'm holding the camera, but on my windowsill over there I've got this really long wooden snake that I've picked up in Australia when I had a bit of an experience out in the desert with a python. That's a story for another time perhaps, but since then I've really felt like the snake is a totem animal or something like that. So I've just refound my interest in snakes, and so I'm going down the rabbit hole of the internet looking at serpents and venom hallucinogenics, and really cool. So if you think something's cool, then that's an idea. And then what I do is I make sure I write it down. So I'll put, if it's related, I'll put it into my Scrivener file. If it's not related, I'll put it into the Things app, which I have on my smartphone and on my laptop. And that's like in the cloud. So the main thing is noticing and also owning what you like. And this is also very difficult, I think, at first. So if you haven't used your creative muscles in a long time, I think you get out of touch with what you really like. Like you think, oh well, I'm writing this technical document, and when I'm off duty I should probably be doing this or whatever. But what if you really like knitting? Or what if you find a certain type of wool that is fascinating? Like, what's the story behind that? Or what if you really like, just head down to what you really enjoy and what interests you, and that's where you get story ideas. So I hope that helps. Susan says, will you be doing more Facebook Live Q&As? Yes, I've done, I think this is my 4th. And I've written down the next one will be Sunday, 2nd of October. And I'll read that out again at the end. Renee says, thank you for the advice that you gave me around multiple pen names. Good. My plans are clicking into place. I'm feeling confident in my decision to self-publish. Fantastic. Claire says, love your idea of measuring the Olympic time. Krista says, I'd like your advice on a book published in 2014. It was my first self-pub. I've got a very long book, 140,000 as a romance. I've been considering redoing it and breaking it up into 2 or 3 books. I think if you've already published it and it was popular, I don't know whether you should now break it up. 140,000 for a romance is pretty hardcore though. What I would say is, if it's going to be 3 books, is it going to be like people have to read all 3 in order to get the story? As a series fan myself, I really like each book to be self-contained, even if there's an overarching story arc. So I would say just be careful breaking up an existing property into 3. Is it going to be a consistent, beginning, middle, end, beginning, middle, end, beginning, middle, end? Or is it going to be a serial? But it's quite long for a serial. So I would say it's difficult. What I would say, and I was talking to someone the other day about this, whatever size book you create is the size that your audience are now going to expect. That's why George R.R. Martin is so screwed, right? Because his books are like this, and so he has to keep delivering books that are that size. He's also written himself into a massive corner because he has so many characters. Another good tip, if you want a shorter book, have fewer characters. So basically, I would say that, yeah, you could break it up, but the most important thing is to think about the reader. Are you going to satisfy the romance reader with that? Or are you going to annoy people? I get really annoyed if a book in a series does not have a satisfactory ending. I'm hardcore about endings. Sarah says, at the very beginning, how did you manage the whole day-to-day existence of working full-time and writing books? Okay, so basically we all have the same amount of time. You have to really want this. So that's the first thing. How much do you want this? And I really, really wanted this. And I was pretty much willing to do anything to make this work. And I just worked like a demon. I still work really hard and I love it. But at the beginning, I worked super hard. I would get up at, I would start writing at 5. So I would get up before work. I would do an hour writing, and then I would come home and I would do blogging, I would do podcasting. At the weekend I would work, and then I went to 4 days a week and spent that other day working. So basically you have to carve out time. We also gave up watching TV back then. That would be much more difficult now because there's a lot of much better TV on than there was in kind of 2008, 2009, 2010 when I was still working a job. So yeah, I hope that helps. The main thing to managing your writing life is to think about how you managing anything. So whether that's exercise or time with your family, you have to make room somehow. So yeah, I think it all comes back to how much do you want it and what are you willing to give up. Okay, so let's see. Sorry, Linda. Linda says she's having technical issues. Yes, sorry about that. Sometimes Facebook's amazing and then sometimes we have problems. Claire says, what advice do you have for bad motivation days? If you've not got nearly as much as you planned done, had one of those today. To be fair, I had one of those today too. We did get up. We left to go for the big walk about an hour and a half too late because we slept in, and then so I got back late and I didn't do the 1,000 words I wanted to do, and because I committed to doing this, I'm not writing this evening. So tomorrow I'm going to try and make up for it, and we'll be attempting to do an extra 1,000 words tomorrow to make up for it. So when you have a bad motivation day, like life gets in the way, or you're just enjoying, like today was really sunny, it was really nice to get outside, then chill out. The question is, how many days in a row does that happen? And that's why I like the logbook idea, because basically everyone has bad days. It's not an issue, but you can't let that go on for too long. So examine what it is. Have you run out of ideas? Are you just really burnt out? Do you need to fill your creative well? I think that's really important. Making sure the stuff is going into your head so that you can then output it into your books. So basically keep a track and check that it's not going on for too long, otherwise there's probably an underlying other issue. Aisling says, yes, it takes time to get a business up and running. You think it will be so much quicker than it is, and I know you have your own business, Aisling, so yeah, it's true. Question, when writing a book, what do you do when you have ideas for other books and you feel forced to stop work on your current book? This is a big issue, and I would say you have to be hardcore. Do not start working on another book until you have finished your current draft. So important, really important, otherwise you will end up not finishing books. This is the biggest issue with people who don't finish, is that they'll be like, there was a guy I met last year, he had 15 books in progress, none of which he had finished or published. That's crazy. And I actually said to him, you have to stop writing right now. Stop doing words every day. This is the thing. This is not about words on the page every day. This is about words on the page when you're creating a first draft, then it's about editing, then it's about publishing, then it's about marketing, then it's about words on the page. So this is the thing. I don't think that writing words every day is necessarily the best use of your time if you want to be a successful indie author. You have to get words on the page for your current project so that you finish that, then you have to work on publishing it. Meanwhile, if ideas come up, just write them down, just log them and tell your mind that you will come back to them later. You acknowledge your subconscious and you write down the idea, but you don't actually turn that into a book until you finish the one you're doing. Really important, otherwise you'll end up with too many unfinished manuscripts and no money in your bank account. Okay. Which would you recommend for an author who doesn't have a large following? Investing time in a consistent podcast or doing events such as webinars? Okay, so I would say that the way marketing is these days, you have to choose what works for you as an author. Webinars are a bit like what I'm doing right now, which is a live event generally where you're presenting material and then doing a Q&A. Pardon me. So, for example, this week on Thursday, the 15th of September, I'm doing a webinar with Tim Gall on book launches. And if you're interested, you can find that at thecreativepenn.com/Tim. Now, I do a one webinar pretty much every month with other people, kind of every month, but it's not something that I like doing myself because I generally find this type of live stuff difficult. So what I prefer to do is a podcast, because the podcast, I actually recorded the podcast yesterday, scheduled it all, and everything is there for Monday morning. And basically, if I wasn't doing this live thing, like, you wouldn't necessarily know what I was up to, or, you know, I can just be, and I can schedule things in advance. The thing is, with a webinar, you kind of have to be there live. So the question is, how do you want to build your audience, and how does it suit your personality to do marketing? So as an introvert, and also as someone whose stated goal is freedom, I don't want to have to do webinars every week, because then I just wouldn't have the time to do the things I want to do, writing and traveling and all that type of thing. So Linda, I would say that, I'm sorry that's not a definitive answer, but it's really about what's your personality type, what do you like doing, and then how does that fit with your audience. And what are you teaching? You know, are you teaching? So webinars are often more about teaching, whereas a podcast is often about discussion, and yeah, there's teaching in it, but it's a slightly different format. So it will depend what suits you. Okay. Deborah says, how do you deal with friends or family interrupting your work day? Yeah, so I was saying a bit about this earlier. So right now I'm doing my first draft. I now work with my husband. He's out there, and he doesn't like interrupt me a lot, but I can hear him and he might wander in and whatever. So what I'm doing now with my first draft is I've booked a room in the local co-working space. Now that, yeah, that's costing a bit of money, but it means I really seriously dedicate that time to writing the novel and getting the first draft done. And I say, bye, I'm going out. I'll go to the co-working space for 2.5 hours. Then I will, and I'll take a break in that time, obviously, but mainly I'll just be working really focused on the novel, and I don't check email, don't do any of that. Then I will take a break, and then I'll go to a coffee shop. I'll do another hour. If I can cope with it and haven't died, I will do another hour. But basically, I get away from them. That is the answer to the question. I get away from them. Or you have to have a thing on your door that says, I am out. And then, you know, just agree that unless the house is burning down, they don't come in. Like, you just have to be hardcore about this, Deborah. Just tell them. Nadine says, if I had an idea for a book, not a series, I know that standalone are hard to sell, but if I talk about the idea, people love it. Look, this whole series thing, yes, they're easier to sell over time, but standalones are brilliant. I've got Risen Gods, which is great, doesn't sell as much as my other books in the series, but I really love the book. I think standalones are easier to do screenplays for, so pretty much, you know, that's awesome. So you could do a screenplay. Readers love standalones. I read a lot of standalones. You know, Stephen King generally writes standalones, even though he tried to kind of make The Shining and Doctor Sleep into a series. It wasn't. They were two standalone. So I love those books. So don't take the kind of prevailing wisdom as the be-all and end-all. The main thing is we're writing lots of books, so make sure you you know, if you write a standalone, awesome, get it out your system, and then maybe think about how you would do a series next time. Or, you know, I've got a few standalone thoughts in my head. In fact, Desecration was meant to be a standalone, and then it turned into a series. So yeah, anyway, yes, get that standalone written, Nadine. Julia says, do you maintain a daily word count? So I do word count when I'm writing a first draft. So at the moment I'm writing a first draft, and I'm writing between, like today I didn't write at all, but I'm writing between 2,500 and 4,000 words a day, and that with the plan to finish that in the first week of October, and then I'll be editing. So once I'm in editing phase, I won't be writing every day, I'll be editing. So the daily word count, I think, is more of a guide towards what are you spending some time in creation time, not just admin and marketing or faffing around. You could still spend that creation time plotting or researching and doing those things. So I'm not a everyday writer. I'm more of a binge writer when I'm doing a first draft, and that is right now. But when we do this again in a few weeks' time, I'll be nearing the end of the novel, and I'll be moving potentially into the editing phase. Margie says, hi Joanna, from Margie in New Zealand. You've given me inspiration to finally publish my first novel at 64. Thanks so much. That's great to hear, Margie. And I really think I'm actually helping a lady at the moment who's 69 to publish. And I actually think that what's so great about the internet, no one knows how old you are. No one knows anything really about you unless you share it. So essentially this is you know, something we can do until we die, and with everybody living longer, you might have another 30 odd years, Margie, so get writing. Natalie says, what do you think about being indie and having a traditional publishing deal at the same time? I have traditional deals for my social care books, but I want to write in other genres. Yeah, this is totally normal now. It's called hybrid publishing, a bit like being like a cyborg. see my camera's completely jiggly now, sorry. Yeah, so it's called hybrid publishing, and essentially, yeah, just watch out for your contracts. If you've signed a contract that says that you can't use that same author name, that might be an issue, but otherwise you should be completely fine. Just look at your contracts. And talking about contracts, Chris Rush at chriswrites.com, KRISWRITES.com, has a really good a selection of blog posts right now on contracts, so I would definitely have a look at that. But yes, doing indie and traditional is called hybrid, and it is something that lots of us do. I have a German contract, an audiobook contract. I would like to get more foreign right contracts with traditional publishers, so yeah, absolutely normal. Oh, Aisling says to Deborah, if necessary, ignore the doorbell. Yeah, I never answer my phone. I like just completely, you know, if you're creating, create. Just do it on your own, you know, don't let anyone else interrupt your creation time. Okay, Bettina says, what is your advice on pricing and marketing individual short stories? Okay, short stories are, I think, quite difficult. I have a short story collection which I use as kind of a freebie. I would say have a look at, I did a podcast with Alan Baxter a couple of weeks ago on selling short stories. I would say that actually trying to sell short stories to short story markets is a really good idea. I've written a couple for anthologies, you know, so basically I wouldn't be selling short stories as individual stories on Amazon or Kobo or whatever. I don't think they sell as well. Hugh Howey does it, but then he's Hugh Howey, so he's got a much bigger audience than most of us. So I would say potentially, yeah, look at that podcast with Alan Baxter. It was really interesting. Also, Dean Wesley Smith has had a post on short story markets as well. Okay, right, how are we doing for questions? Yeah, Cyril says, no wine today. You're already on the ultra marathon diet. Yeah, I am actually, Cyril. I'm actually trying to have a bit of a health kick before I head off to America. I'm going to speaking in Denver, and then I'm going to Oregon, and then I'm going to Israel. So before then, I need to try and lose a few kilos so that when I'm away, I can put them back on. That's the plan. Okay, Lauren says the Rocking Self-Publishing podcast did an interview with Maggie James on standalone success, so that's cool. I know Maggie, yeah, definitely. So check out rockingselfpublishing.com, I think it is, on standalones. Kate says, do you have any tips for gaining traction on non-Amazon retailers, Kobo, iBooks, etc.? Okay, so unfortunately we just talked about standalones, and you can do standalones, but if you want success on Kobo, iBooks, Nook, I actually think series are the best way forward. So what you have to remember with the non-Amazon stores is that you need to do merchandising, so they don't have the same kind of algorithms as Amazon, and the best way to get attention for merchandising is to have a series, because if you think about it, so they've got limited amount of space to promote books. If they promote a free, like iBooks likes free first in series, if they promote a free first in series and there are 5 other books in a series, they're far more interested in that than they are in a standalone, because the standalone, the people might just buy one book and then not buy any more. So you have to think about it from the retailer's point of view. So that'll be one thing. The other thing is, if you do have a series, you can do box sets, and I pretty much make a lot of my money on other platforms from box sets. So if you have 3 books in a series, do a box set. I've done 8 box sets. I think I'll be doing 9 books soon. If you have standalones that have a similar theme, you could do a box set. And again, I did a blog post on box sets, which you'll find on the Creative Penn. But basically, that would be 2 things. So writing a series, free first in series, is really handy. Doing box sets, which you can, you know, more easily promote because you can lower the price. So I do a lot of those at Kobo. And then also getting to know the retailers. So if you do go to events, you know, Thriller Fest or Romance Writers America, or, you know, any of these genre conferences, find the reps, and they will be there. Just ask around and get to know them, and ask. That's the other thing, ask for promotion. I I'm pretty terrible at asking, to be honest. But with the USA Today thing that I did a few weeks ago, I asked for a Nook promotion and I got it, and that may have been the thing that got me, I think I got around 900 Nook sales, so that was quite cool. Okay, when am I coming to Montreal? I've been to Montreal. I came, it was one of the last projects I did back in 2011. I put in a banking system for a company in Montreal, and I haven't been back, but you never know, one day, get me a speaking gig. Julie says, do I have any views on Bookateur? Is it a halfway house between indie and traditional? Okay, so Bookateur, it is a UK publisher, I think, and yes, it is one of these new digital first, I think they might even be digital only imprints, and they have been very good at driving their authors up the charts, I presume with Facebook advertising, not quite sure. So what are my thoughts? I also think they do have a better royalty system. Not quite sure on that. I'm not published with Bookateur, but I do know some authors with them who really rate them, so that's a good sign. So basically, I don't want to comment on that particular publisher, but the general principle of digital first or digital only publishing, you have to question. You have to ask them, what are they going to do for your marketing? Because if you're just another ebook in the ecosystem and literally all they've done is upload your book to Amazon and Kobo and iBooks and put a half decent cover on it, if that's all they're going to do, then why would you do that? Why would you give up 50% of your royalties, for example? So I would really say some of these digital only publishers might be worth it only if they are going to do the marketing, and that they're not going to price you at a ridiculous price either. So I see some new authors being priced at $15 for an ebook. It's like, no one's going to buy that. It's crazy. Okay. Linda says, is it realistic to create evergreen non-fiction books? Yes, absolutely. There are lots of evergreen non-fiction books. I think you have to pick your topic. So for example, my how to market a book is ridiculous because I'm actually going to do the rewrites on that hopefully before Christmas. It will be the 3rd edition because book marketing changes. However, the Successful Author Mindset that I just wrote, I don't think, that could be evergreen. How to write a novel, the course I've just made, I really love it because I think it can be evergreen because, how to write a novel stays the same, whereas book marketing and self-publishing doesn't. So this is what's so interesting. I think if you consider the topic, if it is like a self-help book that's around mindset or, I think then it could be evergreen. The problem is anything that's tech related, anything that's, that might be, like communication in the age of the fax. Fax communication, that's clear, anything that's technology related is going to go out of date. So but no, definitely you can create evergreen non-fiction. Dan says they're listening to the Story Grid podcast, which is great, and Sean Coyne advises to spend time improving scene writing skills. Do you have any advice on scene writing? Yeah, so it's really interesting. Actually this week, so my how to write a novel course, I had the first kind of email from someone who's gone through it, and it's only been available for a week, so that's pretty cool. And she said one of the biggest aha moments was from writing in chapters to writing in scenes, and I think it was a big aha moment for me too when I started writing. So basically the scene it takes place in a particular setting, it has a character, and there's generally conflict. There has to be a value shift, so at the beginning maybe they're looking for something, and by the end of the chapter they find something, and maybe again a bit later, the scene, they lose it again, so there has to be a value shift in it. So there's some things that make up a scene. Story Engineering by Larry Brooks is good, but Sean Coyne's The Story Grid is a great book on it. Or you could look at my course, thecreativepenn.com/write novel. But basically, the scenes I think can really change your mind on writing things, because it's like, okay, well this is a whole scene, and then often a chapter will break in the middle of a scene, or there'll be multiple scenes in a chapter, and that's often how you create a cliffhanger. So to me, the scene is a kind of self-contained little story, but if you break a scene in the middle, you're left with a question. So that's how I do my scenes into chapters. Okay. Alison says, have you ever run a multi-author box set, or do you have any advice in doing it? Okay, so I've been in multi-author box sets and it is a nightmare. I haven't run them, done the money, because although I do the money for my co-written book with Jay Thorne, but that's one other person. So yeah, doing multi-author box sets, I did put some stuff in that episode on box sets, so have a look at that. But you need a really good contract. I'd suggest you do it for a short time, so like a 6-week thing where you all promote in that time and then you withdraw it from the market, because otherwise you're going to be having to deal with those royalties, which would get less and less and less for ages, and that's a real pain. So I would say do it for a short time only, really focus it into a particular genre. So, you know, post-apocalyptic YA thrillers box set, or, you know, romance with firefighters, and do that, and that would be a way to focus it and have a very good marketing plan that you can use. So the box set I was in, the multi-author box set a couple of years ago, was the one that hit the New York Times and the USA Today list. So that's there were 12 of us and it was very successful. We sold about 120,000 books, box sets, and we all made money as well as hitting the lists. But then after that, because I'd been in a successful box set, people asked me to be in other ones, and none of the other box sets I've ever been in have hit that level of success. So you definitely have to, and I think it was really to do with marketing and choosing the right authors with the right platforms to be involved. So I hope that helps. Can we have book A and B on KU and then have box set A and B wide? No. Some authors are doing this, but I think it's against Kindle Unlimited. I just think that's, you know, the thing is, if we try and mess up with Amazon, they will mess up with us. So, you know, Amazon says your book must be exclusive. So it's exclusive. It can't be in a box set as well. That's crazy. Margie says, I'm having trouble figuring out how to use Facebook, a blog and a newsletter. Do you use the same material or different material? Okay, so again, it will depend what you want to do. If you you could just have a look at how I do it. So basically, with Facebook, I will generally post links to other material, like other articles that I find on other blogs. And I will post my own blogs when I write those. For my newsletter, I'll generally do a roundup. I'll also share pictures. So like I'll share pictures of my research trips or what I've been up to, and other useful things, or book recommendations that people might find useful, that type of thing. So essentially, I would generally share different information, although some of it would overlap. So in my newsletter, I always point people back to an article I've written on the blog if I want them to see it. Julie says, royalties are 45%. Someone from Bookateur was on the panel. Yeah, so 45% for an ebook royalty is better than a lot of traditional publishers, and that's why companies like Bookateur are attracting authors, because they're like, oh, I get 45%. But that's why I'm saying just be really careful around what they're offering. I don't know what they're offering or what other digital only publishers are offering. You have to decide what you want, and then are they actually offering what you want, or are they offering, we'll just chuck it up there and see what happens. Oh, Nadine says she loves the course so far. Linda also says she loves the course so far. Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled. What's so funny is my husband said, why didn't you do this course ages ago? And I said, I don't think I really understood my own process for writing a novel until recently. And now it actually making that course helped me a lot. So this is what I would say to you guys if you're thinking of doing a course. If you teach something, it will really help you figure out your own process. So I've really found that, and I've actually got the spreadsheet here, that one of the downloads from the course, that it was the first time I made it. I'd never actually written down my own list of questions to ask about my own books. So it's been really helpful for me to do that course, and I'm finding that End of Days is really flowing because of doing that work. Okay, how are we doing for time? 10 to 9, and I was a bit late, so we'll see if we can answer all the questions. Right. Oh, oh, we're almost at the end of the questions. So if you do have any questions, now's the time to ask them. John says, I've just bought Scrivener. Can you give a brief description of your approach to using it? Yeah, so basically with Scrivener, I use it right now, for example, well, for the last couple of months, I've been using it to dump all my ideas for end of days into it. So, you know, if I was thinking about serpents and I was thinking about the Ishtar Gate in Berlin. So, you know, I was putting different things in there into the research section. And then now I'm in the first draft. I'm actually using the manuscript section of Scrivener, and I'm actually typing my scenes into Scrivener. So I use it for plotting, planning, I use it for writing. Then when I edit, I will do snapshots, and then I will edit into Scrivener, or I print off the manuscript. I hand edit on paper, and then I type it back into Scrivener, and then I do the same with my editor, and I use all the information in the inspector, which is on the right hand column. So for example, with each scene I'll do what is the conflict, what is the cliffhanger, what is the valley shift. So I'll use all those boxes. I'll use the synopsis box. I'll basically using all of that to do. I love Scrivener. And then, oh, I should mention that you can also publish from Scrivener, or you can output. So you compile the book in Kindle and EPUB formats, and you can publish directly using files from Scrivener. And that's how I publish my own ebooks. So you don't need to be a programmer to do ebooks. It's super cool. So yeah, so I just compile on Scrivener, and then I upload those files onto Amazon, Kobo, iBooks, etc. Okay, so Kristen says, how did you find a good editor when you were starting? I'm not sure what is reasonable. Okay, so if you go to thecreativepenn.com/editors, you will find a list that I've compiled over time, and that has a number of different types of editors and articles on editing. So in terms of, and I always say that editors are kind of like dating. Like, you never expect to find your perfect partner on your first date, and I wouldn't expect, like, my first I've used a ton of different editors, and I've got a really good one now. You know, hopefully we'll be together a while, but you know, I think it's unlikely that you'll remain with the same editor for too long. So you know, pick someone that you gel with. You can pay for a 1 or 2 chapter edit, and then you know, see if that really works for you, and then carry on, or you can find someone else. So I would say you just kind of have to bite the bullet and try a few people out. Cyril says, did I try Scrivener for iPad? No, I don't have an iPad. I do have Scrivener on the iPhone, but I haven't used it yet. I don't know why. I think because I use Things app on the iPhone when I'm thinking of ideas, and then when I really put things into Scrivener when I'm on my Mac. So yeah, I just haven't used it yet. Krista says, as a new author, I'm not at a point where I can afford a PA. Most authors can't, and I'd like advice on how to organise and allot time for promotion, marketing and other business tasks. Okay, so I have a VA, virtual assistant, and she works a few hours a week, but yeah, most of us do everything. And basically what I would say is the most important thing is to carve out your creative time. So when I was working my day job, I would get up at 5, and I would do my creative time between like 5 and 6:30, and then I'd get ready for work, and then in the evening I would do marketing. So when I think it's about when your creative time is. So I'm a morning person, that's why I'm doing this in the evening, because I can be a bit more relaxed, and I'm not like, oh, must get stuff done. So for you, you'll have to figure out, okay, when is my creative time, and then make sure you create something then, so you're thinking about your book, or you're plotting or writing notes or whatever you're doing, or actually writing first draft or editing. And then after you have done that creative time, then look at your other time for marketing and learning and all those different things. So it's really about when is your creative time and when is your other time. But we all have to manage all of it, you know, in order to do this as a business. And I did have this conversation the other day with someone, and he was like, but I don't, you know, I don't need to make any money from this. So I was like, well, why are you obsessed with marketing? Like, if your goal and your definition of success is not around book sales, then why worry too much about marketing? If it is about book sales, then yeah, you have to learn the stuff and you have to fit it into your schedule. It's just the way it goes. Okay, Nadine also asked about finding the right editor for your genre. You literally just have to look at people's websites. So go to my list, thecreativepenn.com/editors, have a look at the list, click on a website, and they will say what genres they edit. And that's really important. You should only use an editor who likes your genre. So that's cool. Actually, tomorrow on the podcast, I am interviewing an editor, Harry DeWolf. And that's actually a really interesting podcast coming up tomorrow. We'll be talking, he made me think about a few things, and those of you who are on the Write a Novel course, you'll hear me talk about some of the things he mentioned. One of the things he says is one of the mistakes of new authors is giving an editor a pile of writing. So here's 80,000 words, and it's not a story, it's just a pile of writing. And I was like, really? People do that? And he's like, yeah, because they don't understand story structure. So it's very important that you don't give an editor a pile of words. And the other thing he said is authors who give him a first draft. So it's very important to remember that what we give to an editor is not a first draft, it's something we've self-edited, possibly a number of times. And in fact, Tracy says, does my new course cover how I use Scrivener for editing? Yes, there's actually a whole video on how I use Scrivener, so hopefully that will be helpful. Okay, looks like we're out of questions. Woohoo, we made it. I'm really pleased. Okay, so what else was I going to tell you? Right, so then yes, this Thursday the 15th, if you want to hang out again, I'll be doing a webinar with Tim Grohl on how to launch a book. Tim's quite different to me, I think, and those of you who listen to the Story Grid podcast will have heard Tim, and so that will be really interesting. That's on Thursday. You can find that at thecreativepenn.com/Tim. And the next Facebook Live will be Sunday the 2nd of October. Can you believe we're heading into autumn and winter? But I will be here. So Sunday 2nd of October, same time, same place, and I will get the right page this time and won't be late. Okay, so thanks ever so much for joining me this evening, and happy writing, everybody. And yeah, go get some words on the page. Bye.